Greetings everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I have something super exciting for all you guys, especially all you FNAF fans, myself included. We are going to dive into one of the most horrifying FNAF fan games. I've only seen a handful of YouTubers cover this game, and I don't mean specifically play through it and beat everything about it, I mean like talk about it kind of like I'm doing in this video. And that game I'm going to be talking about is The Return to Bloody Nights. Now before we jump into the gameplay and go over like each animatronic and what they do, and then like go into each night in depthly, let me talk a little bit about The Return to Bloody Nights as a whole first. You see, this is a fan game based off of Five Nights at Freddy's of course, but what sets it apart from Five Nights at Freddy's or a Five Nights at Freddy's fan game is it does not take place in a Freddy Fazbear Pizza, rather than it takes place in an abandoned Fredbear's Family Diner. You see, the animatronics are on rampage once again, but instead of it being Bonnie, Freddy, Chica, Foxy, it's your Spring Bonnie and Fredbear along with other animatronics as well. It's really awesome because most would think it's a FNAF clone, but when played through you can tell something is quite different. As you can see from the gameplay footage, the visuals in this game are top notch. The environment is incredibly detailed with creepy and atmospheric lighting that sets the perfect tone for a horror game. The attention to detail in the animatronics design is also quite impressive, and they're even more terrifying than ever before. Something I'd like to note here is you may think that the animatronics and everything in like the background doesn't look good through the cameras, but in my opinion I feel like a FNAF game is good whenever the cameras are kind of bad. That from my taste especially, anytime the cameras are really low quality, I don't know, it takes away kind of a bit of the fear factor. Whenever there's bad camera quality, it kind of reminds me a bit of analog horror, which I think is a pretty nice touch. In The Return to Bloody Nights, players are tasked with surviving 5 nights by monitoring the security cameras and ensuring the animatronics don't get too close. Just like in the original FNAF games, you have limited resources and power, which adds an intense layer of strategy to the gameplay. What sets this fan game apart is the new animatronics that are introduced. Each one has unique abilities and behaviors, making them more challenging to deal with. Some may be clever and try to outsmart you, while others may rely on brute force to get to you. You need to stay on your toes and use your wits to make it through the nights. There are a total of 7 animatronics that will come to attack you. There is Friendly Fazbear, Spring Bonnie, Hollow-Eyed Fazbear, White-Eyed Spring Bonnie, the Endoskeleton, along with Emily Marionette and the Cupcake. Geez, that's a mouthful. I'm going to go over each animatronic and what it does, and what you need to do to prevent yourself from dying. And then I'm going to go into each night in depthly, explaining what happens going up through the nights. Friendly Fazbear and Spring Bonnie are the first 2 that you go up against. Like the OG games, they come at you from either side of the door, kind of like Bonnie and Chica, but a bit different. Friendly Fazbear goes to the left and Spring Bonnie goes to the right. It is super important to be watching them through the cameras. You need to react only when they show up at that left or right door. When either one of them are in the hallway beside the door, you need to look at them popping up on the closest camera feed. Friendly Fazbear will show the innards of his face for his camera feed, whilst Spring Bonnie appears in a dark corridor for his camera feed. This simply means right after this, they'll be right up at your door, and that's when you need to pay attention. When they are here, you need to turn on your flashlight and look at each door. The coolest thing about The Return to Bloody Nights and what it does is that when you shut the doors in the office, you will see a painting against the door of Friendly Fazbear and Spring Bonnie. The thing about it is, these perfectly align with the characters when they appear outside the door. Unlike the original Five Nights, these animatronics can often be seen moving around or falling into place, which is a fantastic touch that often acts as a jump scare. The game is played best with headphones, so that you can hear what the animatronics are if they get close. When these 2 appear, they appear at separate times, but they increase throughout the nights, so you may have to close both doors at the same time or alternate whenever you think one is going to appear. You need to shut the doors and wait for one to knock. This means they have left and that you can unlock the door. Afterwards, all you need to do is find them on the camera feed and note how close they are to your office. Hollow-Eyed Fazbear's only action in the beginning is to be an auditory fake and try to confuse you into thinking animatronics are near you when there really isn't. In later nights, Hollow-Eyed Fazbear is activated fully. He will attack, but his approach is much closer than the other ones. He resides on the left side. You can't see him for the first few nights, and when he is activated, you can. You see, you don't have to close the door until he's fully in view. His face will show, like he'll have his arm out, but you don't have to close the door until there's another animatronic that you need to deal with, or you think he's about to move. Once he does move and he's standing right in front of your door, that's when you need to shut it. If you don't, well, he kills you. You see, he makes callouts or audio notifications to you while you're in your office. When you hear this, you need to see if he's in view or not. You can ignore about 3 of these before you need to close the door. And I don't mean like the auditory fake. No, that kind of happens throughout the night, and it sounds different from his like callouts or whatever. His callouts are kind of like a voice like malfunction. It sounds kind of distorted. That's him like talking or whatever, and those are the ones you need to pay attention to. Now, before going on to the next ones, I would like to note that the jump scare sound effects for these animatronics sound horrifying and add a whole other layer to this game. White-eyed Spring Bonnie is definitely one of the main reasons I made this video. He is not only the thumbnail, but he is one of the hardest animatronics to deal with in this game. You see, this animatronic is similar to Foxy in the sense that he full sends at your right door. However, his gameplay mechanic is very different. When playing this game, players need to remain aware of where White-eyed Spring Bonnie is via the camera feed. When you see him in the cams, he will remain in the same position with his hands over his face. This is because he's playing a game of hide and seek with you. In my opinion, this makes him all the more creepier for some reason. Even Phone Guy mentions that he was designed to do this with children. You always need to be aware of his movement, and when he gets to camera 8, shut the door immediately, as he will run for it. You will hear rapid footsteps followed by 5 quick pounds on the door. Unlike Friendly Fazbear or Spring Bonnie, you can't open the door right away after the 5 pounds. Instead, you need to wait about 3 to 5 seconds before opening it, or it results in a jump scare. The endoskeleton is different because you cannot see him in the cameras. He resides on the right side of your office in the hallway. Once he gets activated, he will only show up at your door certain times through the night. When you see him here, you need to shut the door. You see, what makes him different is he shows up unannounced and banks on the fact that you won't notice him because he makes no audio notification or nothing. You just simply have to be looking at him to notice. And because of this, you need to look at both or one door with your flashlight to see if he's there, and then shut the door, and then he leaves instantly. Emily Marionette is in a box behind you and appears in different spots. You need to shine your flashlight to repel her. She becomes forgettable toward later nights, and this is what makes her annoying to deal with. But there is an audio notification, which is kind of like a bell ringing whenever she moves, and it also makes that same noise whenever you repel her. Last but not least is the cupcake. All it will do is try to block your vision from the cameras, so all you need to do is ignore it pretty much. The nights is what I'm going to bring up next. Each night has something different thrown in, which is kind of like every FNAF game, but it's different because each animatronic has its own pathing, and like before, like I said, they have different things they have to go over. And night 1 is basically the simple night. You listen to the phone call, everything basic like that, and all you're dealing with is Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, because they are the main cast, or like the main 2 characters who are on the show stage, and that just makes it simple. But basically, in the first night, they're just going to be moving around. They don't even come to you per se. Spring Bonnie might, but other than that, you don't really have to deal with anything and worry about anything too much. All you need to do is just listen to the phone guy, and that's pretty much it. You will hear these like loud noises, which is hollow-eyed Fazbear, but he won't try to attack you. Yet he just makes those noises to make you think that you are about to be killed. Night 2 is a bit different because in this night, Spring Bonnie will come to attack you. Also, Fredbear is also activated. He's activated in the first night, but again, like the second one, he only moves around and may come up to you like once or twice to your door. And basically in this night, all you need to do is worry about, again, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, but also I believe Emily Marionette is activated in this night, but she doesn't move at all, I don't believe. If she does, you'll hear the little jingle effect, and at that point, you just need to look behind and see if she's there, and if she is, just shine your light on her and she disappears. She's either activated in night 2 or night 3. Night 3 shakes it up a little bit because this is when the endoskeleton gets active. What makes it different is Phone Guy does not mention this whatsoever. See, you need to look to the right because you'll see him sitting there, but he won't be activated until he stands up. Once he stands up, you need to shut the door. If you just shine your light on him and he doesn't do anything, he won't for a while, but if you ignore him, that's when he jump scares you. At this point on night 3, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie get way more aggressive. Most of the time, it's going to be one animatronic after the other, but sometimes they come almost at the exact same time and you need to be aware. You need to look in the hallways right outside your office to see if they're in their closest cam feed to where you know that the next move they're going to make is going to be up to your office. If you're not paying attention, this can be a really big fright when you look to your left or right and see them standing there. Night 4 definitely throws the biggest difficulty curve because this is when everything else gets added. White-eyed Spring Bonnie is mentioned over the phone guy. Phone guy mentions that he plays hide and seek, and his jump scare is absolutely terrifying. Basically, just keep track of him when he gets to cam 8. Just like the other animatronics, he also has a closest cam feed to where he's basically all the way up to the camera with his hands over his face and his hands go down slowly. Then you have hollow-eyed Fazbear. Like I said, in the beginning, he only makes these loud clanging noises, and I don't know if he still does that in the later nights, but basically, you're just gonna hear like distorted, like kind of marbled up like talking from him, and you just need to look to your left to see if he's in view. Now, if he's fully in view, like right outside the door, close it, or else you die. But if you just see his hand like waving and he's kind of in the back, you don't need to worry about him. You can shut your door and just wait for him. But once you see him out front of your door, that's when you need to have it closed because that's when you know he'll leave right after. On top of this, the original Spring Bonnie and Fredbear are a lot more active as well, and due to the fact that you have to deal with white-eyed Spring Bonnie coming to your left door along with regular Spring Bonnie, this can make a bit of a difficulty curve. Now, what's interesting about Fredbear and the other one is that they can stack on top of each other. Sometimes there's a point where you'll see a hollow-eyed Fazbear right outside your door along with regular Fazbear, which that is absolutely scary because they'll both be there and you just gotta close it and wait for them to leave. And from this point on, it gets way more difficult. Instead of Spring Bonnie and Fredbear going all the way back to the stage, they only go like 1 or 2 cameras away, sometimes 3, but most of the time 1 or 2. This is where you need to be more aware. And don't forget Emily Marionette. If you forget about her, you will result in a lot of bad things. From this point, you just gotta pay attention and use your ears with your audio as best as possible. Now, night 4 and night 5, and then there's night 6 as well, or night 5 and night 6, are just more difficult. And then the cupcakes gets thrown in there eventually, and you don't really need to do anything about the cupcake. It's just there to be annoying or whatever. But basically, the game gets way more difficult, and it seems like it's just easy, but they all like attack at different times. Sometimes they're all synced up, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you have to time it. And not to mention that the longer you have the door shut, the generator heat builds up over time, which you don't want to do because it results in, I believe, your camera shutting down. But from here, you just need to be very aware. Now, the thing that adds a whole layer to it is the details of like the jump scares. Now, I'm going to touch on it. I touched on it about the noise that they make, which is kind of like the combination of the FNAF 1 jump scare noise with some other sound effects. But the details of the jump scares are very scary. Like white-eyed Spring Bonnie's jump scare and hollow-eyed Fredbear's jump scare is very terrifying, and a lot of people have talked about it. Specifically, I remember 8-Bit Ryan brought up how in one of his videos he actually made an intro talking about how nervous the game makes him, which is actually quite nice. Not that the fact that makes him nervous, but the fact that people are willing to admit that a game is scary enough like this one, because most people think it's a FNAF clone like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, that's basically all the nights explained. If you have any questions on like any of the mechanics, let me know about what you are wondering, and I'll be sure to answer you down below. But yeah, another exciting feature to this fan game is the inclusion of multiple endings. Your actions and decisions throughout the game determine which ending you'll get. See, this adds a great replay value and keeps the players engaged, trying to get all these secrets and uncover the true ending. Not to mention, there's also little like cutscenes where 2 characters are talking. There's also little parts in between each night where like you are a paranormal investigator where you're going to investigate the animatronics, which I think is a nice touch and a little bit of a change of pace. But yeah, that pretty much concludes it. This game has so much more to look at, and for the sake of a better experience, I recommend you go check it out in full for yourself, because this game is very, very good. Well, I thank you all for watching today's video, and if you're new, please consider hitting that subscribe button, you guys. I really do appreciate it. We are so close to 500 subscribers, and when we hit 500, I'll do my face reveal. But anyways, if you enjoyed, please let me hear your thoughts down below and what you think of this fan game, and if you have another fan game that you'd like me to talk about, let me know, or just some other horror game. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome, God bless, and peace.